The gun was still warm in his hand when she walked into the office. Blood on his shirt, death in his eyes. And all she said was, "Sir, would you like me to bring you coffee? Or would you prefer to tell me why you're crying?" What you're about to hear is the true story of how one invitation on Christmas Eve saved two broken souls from the darkness they'd been living in for years. But I need to warn you, this story will break your heart before it heals it. Before we begin, do me a favor. Comment below where you're watching from right now. Are you home alone? With family? I want to know because this story hits different depending on where you are in life. Now, let me take you back to where it all started. December 1st, New York City. And a man who'd forgotten how to feel anything at all. His name was Dominic Kane. Not Dom. Not Nikki. Not any of those soft names that normal men answered to. Just Kane. That's what they called him in the boardrooms. In the back alleys. In the police reports that never quite stuck. Kane. Cold as winter steel. Ruthless as a shark in dark water. At 47 years old, Kane owned half of New York's real estate. The legal half, anyway. The other half? Well, let's just say there were reasons why people crossed the street when his black Mercedes rolled by. Reasons why district attorneys retired early. Reasons why witnesses forgot what they saw. Kane's penthouse sat on top of the tallest building in Manhattan. 73 floors above the world. Glass walls. Marble floors. Art worth millions. Everything perfect. Everything cold. Everything empty. Slow. Building tension. December 1st started like every other day. Kane woke at 5 a.m. No alarm needed. Sleep was something he'd learned to control, like everything else in his life. He dressed in the dark. Black suit. White shirt. No tie yet. That came later, after the first phone call of the day. Downstairs, his driver Victor waited. Victor had been with him for 15 years. Victor knew things. Saw things. Said nothing. Morning, boss. Victor. That was the entire conversation. The drive to his office took 20 minutes. Kane spent it staring out the window, watching the city wake up. Normal people. Going to normal jobs. Living normal lives. Sometimes he wondered what that felt like. Then his phone rang, and he stopped wondering. "We have a problem," the voice said. Kane didn't ask who it was. He knew. Handle it. "It's not that simple." The prosecutor. "I said handle it." He hung up. See, that's the thing about power. Real power. It's not about raising your voice. It's about knowing you don't have to. Kane arrived at his office building. Not the legal one downtown. The other one. The one that didn't appear on any official documents. 12 men waited in the conference room. 12 men who'd built their fortunes in the shadows. Gambling. Drugs. Money laundering. Protection rackets. And Kane? Kane was the king of them all. But here's what nobody tells you about being king. It's lonely at the top. Not the kind of lonely where you wish you had friends. Kane had stopped wishing for that 20 years ago, the night his father was murdered in front of him. No. This was different. This was the kind of lonely where you wake up and realize you can't remember the last time someone looked at you and saw a human being instead of a weapon. The meeting lasted 3 hours. Territory disputes. Police bribes. A rival family moving in from Boston. Kane solved every problem the same way he solved everything. With money. With threats. With carefully applied violence when necessary. By noon, he was back in his penthouse. Alone. His assistant had left lunch in the kitchen. Some fancy salad from that place in Soho. Kane threw it away without opening it. He wasn't hungry. He was never hungry anymore. Kane walked to the window. 73 floors up. The whole city spread below him like a kingdom. His kingdom. And for just a moment, Just one brief, unguarded moment. He pressed his palm against the cold glass and thought about stepping through it. Just stepping through. 73 floors of nothing but air and silence. Would anyone even notice? Victor would notice when he didn't come down in the morning. His lawyer would notice when the quarterly payment stopped. The 12 men in that conference room would notice when there was a throne to fight over. But would anyone miss him? Would anyone cry? Kane's phone buzzed. Another problem. Another fire to put out. He turned away from the window. Back to work. Back to the kingdom. Back to the crown that felt heavier every single day. That night, Kane's housekeeper called. Mrs. Chun. 68 years old. She'd been cleaning his penthouse for 12 years. Never asked questions. Never gossiped. Perfect. Mr. Kane, I must give notice. Kane frowned. What? My daughter in California. She's having baby. I need to move there, help her. I'll double your salary. Mr. Kane, something's more important than money. I'm sorry. I leave end of this week. She hung up. Kane stared at his phone. Something's more important than money. When's the last time someone said that to him? The next morning, his assistant sent over a file. New housekeeper candidates. 5 resumes. All qualified. Kane picked the first one without reading it. Hire her. Start Monday. He didn't know it yet, but he'd just changed his entire life with 2 words. Her name was Ivy. Ivy Winters. 28 years old. Bachelor's degree in art history. Currently working 3 jobs to keep her head above water. Waitress at a diner. Night shift at a hotel. And now, housekeeper for some billionaire on the Upper East Side. Ivy hadn't planned on this life. 5 years ago, she was engaged. Planning a wedding. Her fiancé was a stockbroker. They had a future. Then he got arrested. Insider trading. Turns out, the man she loved had been stealing millions from his clients. And the prosecutors thought Ivy knew about it. She didn't. But by the time they figured that out, her reputation was destroyed. Her teaching job? Gone. Her friends? Vanished. Her family? Well, her mother stopped taking her calls 2 years ago. So, Ivy learned to survive. She moved to a tiny studio in Queens. 600 square feet. Bars on the windows. Sirens every night. She learned to smile at rude customers. She learned to work on 3 hours of sleep. She learned to stop hoping for anything better. The night before her first day at Kane's penthouse, Ivy stood in her bathroom, staring at her reflection. Dark circles under her eyes. Hair that needed cutting. A uniform that cost her $80 she didn't have. You can do this, she whispered to herself. It's just cleaning. You've cleaned before. But her hands were shaking. See, Ivy had looked up Dominic Kane. And what she found terrified her. Billionaire. Real estate mogul. Suspected connections to organized crime. 3 dead business partners over the years. All ruled accidents. The message boards called him the Reaper. And tomorrow, she'd be alone in his home. Ivy didn't sleep that night. Monday morning, 6 a.m., Ivy arrived at the building. The doorman looked at her like she was dirt on his shoe. Service entrance is around back. The service entrance led to a private elevator. Security cameras everywhere. Ivy's hands wouldn't stop shaking as she pressed the button for the 73rd floor. The elevator rose, and rose, and rose. Her ears popped. Her stomach dropped. When the doors finally opened, Ivy stepped into another world. Floor-to-ceiling windows. White marble. Abstract paintings that probably cost more than she'd earn in her lifetime. And silence. Complete, total silence. Hello? Ivy called out. Her voice echoed. No answer. Mrs. Chun had left instructions on the kitchen counter. Simple. Straightforward. Dust the living areas. Vacuum the rugs. Don't touch the office. Mr. Kane doesn't like to be disturbed. Ivy got to work. Here's what Ivy noticed in the first hour. No photos. Anywhere. Not one single photograph in the entire penthouse. No personal items. No books on the shelves. No jackets thrown over chairs. Nothing that said a human being actually lived here. The kitchen? Spotless. Like it had never been used. The living room? The cushions on the couch still had the indentations from the factory packaging. This wasn't a home. This was a museum. Ivy was dusting a sculpture in the hallway when she heard the elevator. Her heart jumped into her throat. Footsteps. Slow. Steady. Getting closer. She turned. And there he was, Dominic Kane. 6'3". Broad shoulders. Salt and pepper hair slicked back. A suit that probably cost $10,000. But it was his eyes that made Ivy freeze. Dark. Flat. Like looking into deep water where nothing lives. You're the new housekeeper. It wasn't a question. Yes, sir. I'm Ivy. Kane stared at her. Not the way men usually stared at Ivy. Not with interest or attraction. He stared at her like he was calculating whether she was a threat. The office is off limits. Yes, sir. I don't want conversation. Yes, sir. When I'm home, you're invisible. Understood. Ivy swallowed. Understood. Kane walked past her. His shoulder almost brushed hers. She caught a scent. Expensive cologne mixed with something else. Gunpowder. Her knees nearly gave out. Ivy worked until 2 p.m. Not once did Kane come out of his office. When she left, she realized she'd been holding her breath for 6 hours. That night, her roommate Tessa asked, "How is the Billionaire's place?" Ivy stared at her leftover takeout. "It's the saddest place I've ever seen." Sad? Girl, he's rich. Yeah, Ivy said quietly. Rich and completely alone. Days passed. Every morning, Ivy arrived at 6 a.m. Every morning, Kane was already there, locked in his office. Every afternoon, she left without saying a word. The pattern was simple, comfortable, safe. But Ivy started noticing things. Small things. The way Kane's coffee cup was always full when she arrived, like he'd been up all night. The way the bottle of scotch in his office got emptier and emptier as December wore on. The way she'd sometimes hear him on the phone, his voice cold as winter. I don't care about his family. I care about my money. Make the problem disappear. Send a message. Make sure they understand. Ivy would clean faster on those days, desperate to get out before she heard too much. 2 weeks before Christmas, everything changed. Ivy arrived at the usual time, but the elevator opened to chaos. Papers everywhere. A chair knocked over. And blood. Not a lot. Just drops. Leading from the living room to Kane's office. Ivy's training said, "Leave. Call the police. Run." But something else made her move forward. She knocked on the office door. Silence. She knocked again. "Mr. Kane? Go away." His voice was different. Rough. Exhausted. "Sir, there's blood in the hallway. Are you hurt?" I said go away. Ivy's hand hovered over the doorknob. She should leave. She should absolutely leave. She opened the door. Kane sat behind his desk. Blood on his white shirt. Not his blood. Ivy could see the knuckles on his right hand were split open, but that wasn't where the blood came from. A gun lay on the desk, next to a photograph. Kane's eyes were red. He'd been crying. This man. This killer. This reaper. He'd been crying. "I told you not to come in here." His voice was dead. Ivy stepped inside. Closed the door behind her. "You're hurt." "I'm fine." "Your hand." I said. "I'm Fine. They stared at each other. Ivy should be terrified. Every instinct screamed at her to run. But instead, she heard herself say, "Would you like me to bring you coffee? Or would you prefer to tell me why you're crying?" Kane's face went through about 6 emotions in 2 seconds. Shock, anger, confusion, and then something broke. He laughed. Once. Sharp and bitter. "You don't know when to mind your own business, do you?" "No, sir." "It's a problem." Kane looked down at the photograph on his desk. Ivy couldn't see what it showed. 23 years ago today, Kane said quietly, "I watched my father get murdered. Right in front of me. I was 24 years old." Ivy's breath caught. 3 men. They came to our house. They wanted money he didn't have. So they shot him. 5 times. I held him while he died. Kane's jaw tightened. "You want to know why I'm crying? Because every year on this day, I wonder if I'm any different than the men who killed him." Ivy didn't move. "This morning," Kane continued, voice flat, "a man tried to kill me. In the parking garage. He worked for a rival family. So I handled it." "Did you kill him?" "No. But I wanted to." Kane finally looked up at her. "I wanted to so badly. And that's when I realized. I'm not different. I'm exactly the same. I'm a monster. Just like them." Ivy did something incredibly stupid. She walked around the desk. Kane stiffened. "What are you?" "Stand up." "Excuse me?" "Stand up, Mr. Kane." He stood. Confused. Alert. Dangerous. Ivy reached for his injured hand. He could have stopped her. Could have pulled away. He didn't. She examined the split knuckles. First aid kit. Bathroom. Cabinet. Ivy left. Returned with supplies. She cleaned his wounds in silence. Kane watched her the entire time, like he couldn't quite believe what was happening. "Why aren't you afraid of me?" he finally asked. Ivy dabbed antiseptic on a cut. "Who says I'm not?" "You're shaking." "I'm terrified." "Then why?" "Because," Ivy interrupted, meeting his eyes, "being a monster is a choice, Mr. Kane. And if you were really a monster, you wouldn't hate yourself for wanting to hurt that man. Monsters don't feel guilt." Kane said nothing. Ivy finished bandaging his hand. "There. Try not to punch anyone for a few days." She turned to leave. "Wait." Ivy stopped. Kane's voice was softer than she'd ever heard it. "Thank you." "You're welcome." "And Ivy'll..." "Yes. If you tell anyone what you saw today, I'll..." "Deny everything and call you a liar." "I know." Ivy smiled sadly. "Don't worry, Mr. Kane. I'm good at keeping secrets." She left. Kane stood alone in his office, staring at his bandaged hand. For the first time in 23 years, the anniversary of his father's death didn't end with a bottle of scotch and a loaded gun. It ended with the ghost of kindness. And it terrified him more than any bullet ever could. After that day, things changed. Not obviously. Kane still barely spoke. Still locked himself in his office. Still conducted his dark business in cold, clipped tones. But now, when Ivy arrived in the morning, there was fresh coffee waiting in the kitchen. She never mentioned it. He never acknowledged it. But it was their point 1 week before Christmas. Ivy was dusting the living room when Kane emerged from his office. She froze. He never came out during her shift. Kane walked to the window, stared at the city below. "Do you have family, Ivy?" The question surprised her. Not really, sir." "Not really?" "My mother and I don't speak. Haven't for 2 years." "Why?" Ivy hesitated. "I made mistakes. Trusted the wrong person. She couldn't forgive me." Kane was quiet for a long moment. "What about your father?" "Died when I was 12. "I'm sorry. Thank you." They stood in silence. Two broken people in a glass tower. Christmas, Kane said finally. You have plans? Not really. I work the night shift at the hotel Christmas Eve. Then I'll probably just sleep through the 25th. Kane nodded. Sounds terrible. Despite herself, Ivy laughed. Yeah, it really does. Kane almost smiled. Almost. Then his phone rang. The cold mask slammed back down. Excuse me. He disappeared into his office. But Ivy noticed something. The coffee the next morning? It was exactly how she liked it. Cream. 2 sugars. He'd been paying attention. December 20th. Ivy arrived to find Kane's penthouse destroyed. Furniture overturned. Glass shattered. And on the wall, spray painted in red. You're next. Ivy pulled out her phone. Dialed 911. Don't. She spun. Kane stood in the doorway, perfectly calm. Don't call the police. But this is my world, Ivy. Police can't help. What's going on? Kane walked through the destruction like it was nothing. The Boston family I told you about. They're making their move. This is a message. A message saying they're going to kill you. Yes. And you're just okay with that? Kane looked at her. Really looked at her. I've been living with death for 23 years. It doesn't scare me anymore. Well, it should. The words burst out of Ivy before she could stop them. Kane raised an eyebrow. Excuse me? You should be scared. You should call the police or hire more security or what? Run? Hide? Kane's voice turned hard. I don't run, Ivy. Then you're an idiot. Silence. Kane stared at her. Ivy realized what she'd just said. To a mafia boss. In his own home. I'm sorry, sir. I shouldn't have. No. Kane's voice was strange. You're right. I am an idiot. He walked to the window. Back to his favorite spot. You know what's funny? I've spent 23 years building an empire. Power. Money. Respect. I thought that's what mattered. Kane pressed his hand against the glass. But lately I've been wondering, what's the point? When I die, and I will die probably soon, what will I leave behind? Money? Buildings? Fear. He turned to face her. No one will remember me, Ivy. No one will cry. I'll just be another name in the obituaries. Dominic Kane. Billionaire. Died alone. Ivy's heart cracked. She'd seen this man threaten people. Seen him cold and cruel and utterly ruthless. But right now he just looked tired. That's not true, Ivy said quietly. What? People will remember you. Victor. Your assistant. I'd remember you. Kane laughed bitterly. You barely know me. I know enough. You know I'm a criminal. A killer. I know you drink your coffee black. I know you work 18-hour days. I know you've been sleeping in your office because you have nightmares. Ivy took a step closer. I know you bought a new first aid kit after I used yours and you put it in the kitchen where I'd find it. Kane went very still. I know, Ivy continued, her voice shaking now, that you've been leaving me coffee every morning, exactly how I like it. And I know that last Tuesday, when I had the flu and couldn't come in, you texted your assistant to check on me. How did you? She told me. Ivy smiled. She thought it was sweet. Kane looked away. I was just making sure my housekeeper wasn't contagious. Right. I was. Okay. Stop smiling. I'm not smiling. You're smiling right now. Ivy laughed. Actually laughed. In this destroyed penthouse, with death threats on the wall. And then Kane did something that shocked them both. He smiled back. Not a smirk. Not a cold professional mask. A real smile. It transformed his entire face. Made him look younger. Human. Ivy's laughter faded. They stood there 3 feet apart, in the ruins of Kane's perfect life. Mr. Kane. Dominic. What? My name. It's Dominic. Not Kane. Not sir. He hesitated. My father used to call me Nick. Tears pricked at Ivy's eyes. Nick. Yeah. Nick, I want to ask you something. And you can absolutely say no. What is it? Ivy took a breath. Christmas Eve. I know you don't have plans. And I know I'm just your housekeeper. But. She pulled out her phone. Showed him a photo. A small house in Brooklyn. Decorated with lights. Warm. Inviting. My friend Tessa. She's having Christmas Eve dinner. Nothing fancy. Just people. Food. Laughter. Ivy looked up at him. Would you like to come? Kane stared at the photo. A million thoughts crossed his face. Finally. Why? Why what? Why would you invite me? You know what I am. I know who you are, Ivy corrected. And I think you've been alone long enough. Kane's throat worked. Ivy. You don't have to answer now. Just think about it. She turned to leave. Ivy. She looked back. Kane's voice was barely a whisper. What time? Ivy's heart soared. 7 o'clock. I don't know if I can. I'll text you the address. You don't have to stay long. Just show up. Have one meal with people who won't judge you. Who won't want anything from you. Who'll just be kind. Kane nodded slowly. Okay. Okay, I'll come. Ivy's smile could have lit up the entire city. Okay. She left before she started crying. Behind her, Dominic Kane stood in his destroyed penthouse, holding his phone, staring at an address in Brooklyn. And for the first time in 23 years, he felt something that terrified him more than any death threat. Hope. December 23rd. Ivy was at her diner job when her phone rang. Unknown number. Hello. Ivy Winters? The voice was cold. Professional. Wrong. Who is this? A friend. I want to talk to you about your employer. Ivy's blood went cold. I don't know what. Dominic Kane. You work for him. I want information. I don't have any information. See, I don't believe you. You're in his home every day. You see things. Hear things. I don't know what you're talking about. Then let me be clear. The voice turned sharp. Kane has something that belongs to my employer. We want it back. You're going to help us. No. No. The man laughed. Sweetheart, you don't understand. This isn't a request. I said no. We know where you live. We know where you work. We know about your mother in Florida. It would be a shame if something happened to. Ivy hung up. Her hands were shaking so hard she dropped the phone. She should have called Kane. Should have warned him. But Ivy knew what he'd do. He'd go to war. More blood. More death. And it would be her fault. So instead, she made a decision. She'd go to Christmas Eve dinner. She'd give Kane one night of peace. One night of normalcy. And then she'd disappear. Leave New York. Change her number. Protect him by vanishing. Even if it broke her heart. December 24th. Ivy spent the morning wrapping presents for Tessa's kids. She couldn't afford much. Some books from the thrift store. Candy. Small things. But she wrapped them carefully. With love. Because this would be her last Christmas in New York. Tomorrow, she'd be gone. Ivy stood outside Tessa's house in Brooklyn, wearing her only nice dress. Black. Simple. Worn at the hem. She checked her phone. No message from Kane. He wasn't coming. Of course he wasn't coming. What was she thinking? A man like Dominic Kane didn't do family dinners in Brooklyn. Ivy. Tessa appeared at the door, wrapped in an apron covered in flour. Get in here. It's freezing. Inside, chaos. Kids running. Music playing. The smell of ham and sweet potatoes and pie. Warmth. Life. Everything Kane's penthouse wasn't. Ivy helped set the table. 4 smiles. Tried not to check her phone every 30 seconds. 7 p.m. No Kane. 7:15 p.m. No Kane. 7:30 p.m. Ivy, we're about to eat. Tessa called. Coming. Ivy took one last look at her phone. Nothing. She turned to go inside. A black Mercedes pulled up to the curb. Ivy's heart stopped. The back door opened. Dominic Kane stepped out. But not the Kane she knew. No suit. Just dark jeans. A sweater. A wool coat. He looked normal. And absolutely terrified. Kane stood on the sidewalk, staring at the house. At the lights. At the life inside. Ivy walked down the steps. You came. I almost didn't. What changed your mind? Kane looked at her. You said people would be kind. I haven't experienced kindness in a very long time. Ivy's eyes filled with tears. Well, come experience it now. She held out her hand. Kane stared at it. In his world, physical contact meant violence, meant threat, meant danger. But Ivy's hand was small, steady, safe. He took it. Her fingers were warm. His were cold. She squeezed gently. Ready? No. Good. Neither am I. Let's do this anyway. Tessa answered the door. She took one look at Kane, this tall, dangerous-looking man, and said, You must be Ivy's boss. Come in, come in. You're just in time. Kane expected questions. Suspicion. Fear. Instead, Tessa handed him a beer and pointed to the couch. Make yourself comfortable. Kids, say hi to Mr. Nick, Kane said quietly. Just Nick. Mr. Nick. This is Tommy, Sarah, and the baby is Marcus. Tommy, stop hitting your sister. Sarah, don't bite Tommy. Marcus, spit that out. Chaos. Beautiful, messy, perfect chaos. Kane sat on the couch. A 6-year-old immediately climbed into his lap. Are you Ivy's boyfriend? Sarah asked, all innocent eyes. I know. I'm her employer. What's that mean? It means I'm not her boyfriend. Why not? She's pretty. Kane glanced at Ivy. She'd gone bright red. Yes, he said slowly. She is. Dinner was loud. 6 adults. 3 kids. 1 table. Kane sat between Ivy and Tessa's husband, Mark. Mark was a construction worker. Talked with his hands. Told terrible jokes. So, Nick, what do you do? Kane froze. Ivy jumped in. Real estate. Oh yeah? Making good money? I do all right. Must be nice. We're just scraping by. Mark laughed. But hey, we got love, right honey? Tessa kissed his cheek. Damn right. Kane watched them. This couple, living in a small house, struggling with bills, kids to feed. But they had something he'd never had. They had each other. Narrator. After dinner, Tessa's mother brought out dessert. Apple pie. Warm. Cinnamon scented. She served Kane first. A huge slice. You're too skinny, she declared. Eat. Kane stared at the pie. Thank you. You're welcome, sweetheart. Sweetheart. When's the last time someone called him that? Kane took a bite. It was perfect. And suddenly, without warning, he remembered Christmas Eve. 24 years ago. Kane was 23. His father was still alive. They'd sat in their tiny apartment in Queens. Just the two of them. His mother had died when he was 10. His father had made apple pie. It was terrible. burn on the edges, raw in the middle. But they'd eaten every bite. Next year, his father had said, "We'll have a real Christmas. Big house, big tree, everything." Next year never came. 2 months later, his father was dead. And Cain had spent the next 23 years building that big house. That empire. But he'd forgotten what he was building it for. Cain's throat closed up. His eyes burned. Not here. Not in front of these people. "Excuse me." He stood, walked quickly to the bathroom, locked the door, and broke. Silent sobs, chest heaving, 23 years of pain coming out all at once. A soft knock. "Nick?" "It's me." "Ivy." Cain wiped his face. "Open the door." Ivy took one look at him and wrapped her arms around his waist. No questions. No judgment. Just kindness. Cain's arms came around her slowly, like he'd forgotten how to hold another human being. They stood there in the tiny bathroom, while laughter echoed from the dining room. "I can't remember the last time I cried," Cain whispered. "That's sad." "I know." "Wanna know what I think?" "What?" Ivy pulled back just enough to look at him. "I think you've been trying so hard to be strong, you forgot it's okay to be human." Cain's jaw tightened. "In my world, being human gets you killed." "Then maybe you're in the wrong world." They returned to the dining room. But Cain couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. He'd survived this long by trusting his instincts. And right now, his instincts were screaming. "Ivy," he said quietly, "we need to leave." "What? Why?" "Something's not right." "Nick, you're just nervous." "It's okay." Glass shattered. The front window exploded inward. Screams. Kids crying. Tessa shoving her children behind her. And through the broken window, Cain saw them. 3 men. Black suits. Dead eyes. The Boston family. Cain moved faster than Ivy had ever seen. He grabbed her, shoved her toward the back of the house. "Get everyone to the back bedroom. Lock the door. Call 911. Nick." "Now, Ivy." She ran. Cain turned to face the men entering through the front door. The leader smiled. "Dominic Cain. We've been looking for you. This place has nothing to do with our business." "No. But you're here. And we have a message to send." The man pulled out a gun. "Your empire ends tonight." Cain was unarmed, outnumbered, cornered. Everything he'd trained for. "Let these people go. Your fight is with me." "That's not how this works. Everyone here dies. Starting with." The man turned toward the back of the house, where Ivy had gone, and something in Cain snapped. For 23 years, Cain had been a monster because he thought he had to be. But right now he became a monster because he chose to be. Because there were people behind him who needed protecting. Because there was a woman in the back bedroom who'd shown him kindness. And he would die before he let anyone hurt her. What happened next took 45 seconds. Cain moved like death itself. The first man went down with a broken nose. The second man got his gun taken away, and his knee shattered. The third man, the leader, fired. The bullet grazed Cain's shoulder. He didn't stop. He couldn't stop. By the time it was over, all 3 men were on the ground, disarmed, bleeding. Cain stood over them, breathing hard, blood running down his arm. And then the door behind him opened. Ivy stood in the doorway. She'd seen everything. Cain turned to face her, expecting fear, horror, rejection. Instead, Ivy ran to him. "You're hurt." "I'm fine." "You're bleeding." "Ivy, you need to listen to me. More will come. You're not safe near me. You need to." "No." "What?" "I said no." Ivy grabbed his face, made him look at her. "I'm not leaving you. Ivy, I don't care what you've done. I don't care who you are. You just saved my life. You saved everyone here. Tears streamed down her face. So no, Nick. I'm not leaving you. Sirens in the distance. Kane knew he should run. Should disappear before the cops arrived. But he couldn't move. Because Ivy was holding him like he mattered. Like he was worth saving. Like he was human. The police burst in. Guns drawn. Shouting. Hands up. Everyone on the ground. Kane raised his hands. But then Tessa stepped forward. Officers, that man saved our lives. Those three broke into our home. He protected us. Mark nodded. He's a hero. Tessa's mother. He saved my grandbabies. One by one, everyone in that house backed Kane's story. The police looked at the three Boston family members, ran their records, found warrants, connections. The ranking officer turned to Kane. Looks like you got lucky. These guys are wanted for questioning in 6 different cases. You did us a favor. Kane just nodded. After the police left, taking the 3 men with them, the house fell quiet. Tessa's kids were asleep in the back room. The adults sat in the living room, window boarded up, drinking coffee. Well, Tessa said, that was the most exciting Christmas Eve I've ever had. Despite everything, they laughed midnight. Ivy insisted on bandaging Kane's shoulder. They sat in Tessa's kitchen. Everyone else had gone to bed. You should see a doctor, Ivy said. I've had worse. That doesn't make me feel better. Kane watched her work. Her hands were gentle, careful. I'm sorry, he said quietly. For what? For bringing danger to your friends. To you. I never should have come. Stop. Ivy. I mean it. Stop. She finished bandaging him and sat back. You came because I invited you. You stayed because you wanted to feel human for one night. None of what happened was your fault. Those men came because of me. Those men came because they're criminals. You didn't create them. Ivy met his eyes. And you protected us. You could have run. Could have saved yourself. But you didn't. Kane's voice dropped to a whisper. Why? Why what? Why do you keep defending me? You know what I am. I know who you are. There's a difference. Is there? Ivy reached out. Took his hand. Yes. They sat in silence. Outside, snow began to fall. The first white Christmas in New York in 7 years. Ivy. Yeah. Kane squeezed her hand. I got a call 3 days ago from the Boston family. They said if I didn't give them what they wanted, they hurt someone close to me. Ivy's breath caught. What? I don't have anyone close to me. Never have. It was an empty threat. Kane paused. Until you. Nick. I should have told you. Should have warned you. But I was. He struggled with the words. Selfish. I wanted one more day. One more moment of pretending I was normal. You're normal. Kane laughed bitterly. I'm a criminal, Ivy. I've done terrible things. Hurt people. Destroyed lives. I know. You deserve better. Let me decide what I deserve. Kane looked at her. Really looked at her. This woman who'd seen his worst and still held his hand. I don't know how to do this, he admitted. Connection. Feelings. Any of it. Neither do I. Your ex. Destroyed my life. Made me afraid to trust anyone. Ivy smiled sadly. But you know what? I trust you. Isn't that crazy? I trust a man who could kill me in 6 different ways. 12 ways, actually. Ivy laughed. Oh, well, that makes me feel much better. Kane almost smiled. I would never hurt you. I know. I mean it. I would die first. I know, Nick. They were so close now. Close enough that Ivy could see gold flecks in his dark eyes. Close enough that Kane could count her freckles. This is a bad idea, Kane whispered. Terrible idea. You should run. Right now. I don't want to run. Ivy. She leaned forward. Nick. Their lips met. Soft. Tentative. Like neither of them quite believed this was happening. And then Kane's hand came up to cup her face, and the kiss deepened. 23 years of loneliness. 2 broken people. 1 moment of perfect connection. When they pulled apart, both were trembling. I need to tell you something, Ivy whispered. What? The Boston family. They called me, threatened me, said they'd hurt my mother if I didn't give them information about you. Kane went very still. When? 2 days ago. And you didn't tell me? I didn't want you to go to war. I didn't want more blood on your hands because of me. Kane stood. Started pacing. They threatened you. Nick. They threatened you, and you didn't tell me. I was trying to protect you. I don't need protecting. Kane's voice rose. Then he caught himself. Lowered it. I'm sorry. The thought of them hurting you. They won't. How do you know? Because Ivy stood, walked to him. You're going to end this. Not with violence. Not with more death. You're going to use what you do best. Which is strategy. Power. Fear. Ivy placed her hand on his chest. You're Dominic Kane, the Reaper. 1 phone call from you, and the Boston family backs down. Kane looked down at her hand, over his heart. What if I want to be someone else? Someone better? Then be better. Starting tomorrow. But tonight? Tonight you use who you are to end this threat. Then we figure out who you want to become. Christmas morning. Kane made the call at 6 a.m. The head of the Boston family. Carlo Rossini. Kane. Merry Christmas. Your men are in police custody. I heard. Unfortunate. Pull back, Rossini. End this now. And why would I do that? Kane's voice went cold. Because I have evidence. Every illegal transaction you've made in the last 5 years. Every bribe. Every murder. Every dirty deal. Silence. If anything happens to me or anyone connected to me, that evidence goes to the FBI. And you spend the rest of your life in a cell. You're bluffing. Try me. More silence. What do you want? Rossini finally asked. Peace. We divide the city properly. We stay out of each other's way. And you never, ever come near my people again. Your people? Since when does the Reaper have people? Kane glanced at Ivy, sleeping on Tess's couch. Things change. I see. Rossini chuckled. Love makes men weak, Kane. Maybe. Or maybe it gives them something to fight for. Philosophical. Fine. You have your peace. But Kane? If you ever cross me. Ivy woke to the sound of children's laughter. Tess's kids were opening presents. For a moment, Ivy just watched. This beautiful, chaotic family. Then she felt someone sit beside her. Kane. He'd stayed. All night. Just sitting in a chair, watching over everyone. Merry Christmas, he said softly. Merry Christmas. Did you sleep? No. Nick. I was thinking about. Kane turned to face her. About how I've spent 23 years building an empire of fear. And in one night, you showed me something I'd completely forgotten. What's that? That power isn't about how many people fear you. It's about having someone to fight for. Ivy's eyes filled with tears. Nick. I called Rossini. It's over. The threat. The war. All of it. How? I'm still a monster when I need to be. Kane smiled slightly. But now I'm a monster with something to protect. Before Ivy could respond, Tommy ran over. Mr. Nick. Santa came. Did he? Yeah. And he brought you a present too. Kane looked at Ivy. She shrugged, smiling. Under the tree, wrapped in newspaper because it was all they had, was a small package. Kane opened it carefully. Inside, a photo frame. And in it, a picture from last night. Ivy, Kane, and everyone else crammed around the dinner table, smiling. A family. Kane stared at the photo for a long moment. Thank you, he whispered. Tommy hugged his leg and ran off. I have something for you too, Ivy said. You didn't have to. She pulled out a small wrapped box. Kane opened it. Inside, a simple keychain with a tiny engraving. You are not alone anymore. Kane's hands started shaking. The keychain was cheap. Probably cost $10. It was the most valuable thing anyone had ever given him. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. Ivy, I can't. Can't what? Kane looked at her with tears in his eyes. I can't promise I'll be good. I can't promise I'll change everything overnight. My world is dark and dangerous. And I know. And you still want this? I don't want this. I want you. Kane closed his eyes. I don't deserve you. Probably not. Ivy smiled. But here I am anyway. Why? Because Ivy said simply, everyone deserves someone who sees them, really sees them. And I see you, Nick. Not the Reaper. Not the monster. Just you. And I like what I see. Kane pulled her into his arms, held her like she might disappear. I'm terrified, he whispered. Me too. I'll probably mess this up. Definitely. I don't know how to be in a relationship. Neither do I. We'll figure it out together. Kane pulled back to look at her. What if I hurt you? What if you don't? They kissed. Soft and slow and full of promise. When they pulled apart, Tessa was watching from the kitchen, crying happy tears. You two are disgustingly cute, she called. They laughed. The week after Christmas, Kane did something he'd never done. He took a vacation. Well, sort of. He and Ivy spent 3 days at his penthouse. But this time it felt different. Ivy brought life to the space. Threw open curtains. Played music. Made the place feel like a home instead of a tomb. And Kane? Kane learned to be human again. They cooked together. Terribly. They ordered takeout. They watched movies. Kane fell asleep 10 minutes into each one. They talked. For hours. About everything and nothing. New Year's Eve. They stood at Kane's window. The city spread below them. I've made a decision, Kane said. What's that? I'm getting out. Ivy turned to him. Out. Not completely. I can't just walk away from my world. But I'm going legitimate. Selling off the illegal operations. Keeping the real estate. The legal stuff. Is that possible? It'll take time. And it'll be dangerous. People don't like it when you change the rules. Kane looked at her. But I want to build something I can be proud of. Something that won't get you killed. What about the people who work for you? I'll take care of them. Find them new positions. Or help them get out too. Kane smiled slightly. Turns out, a lot of them only stayed because they were afraid to leave. Once I gave them the option, they jumped at it. That's amazing, Nick. It's a start. Just a start. Ivy leaned into him. What do you want? Like really want? If you could have anything? Kane was quiet for a long moment. I want to wake up next to someone I love. I want to have a family. Kids who laugh instead of flinching when I walk in a room. I want to be the man my father thought I could be. That sounds perfect. What about you? Ivy smiled. I want to go back to school. Get my teaching degree. I want to make a difference. Help kids who feel as lost as I did. You'd be an amazing teacher. You think. I know. They kissed as the city counted down to midnight.
10, 9, 8.
Ivy. Yeah. Move in with me. She pulled back. What? Move in. Officially. I know it's fast, but yes. 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 Ivy laughed. Though I should warn you, I'm messy. I'll hire more housekeepers. That's not funny. I'm not joking. They were still laughing when the fireworks started. Christmas Eve. 1 year later, Kane's penthouse was unrecognizable. Photos on the walls, books on the shelves, a real Christmas tree in the corner, and gathered around the dinner table.
Ivy. Kane.
Tessa and her family. Victor and his wife. Kane's assistant and her girlfriend. A found family, built from nothing. Kane stood to make a toast. 1 year ago, I was the loneliest man in New York. I had everything and nothing. Power without purpose. Money without meaning. He looked at Ivy. Then someone invited me to dinner. Someone saw past the monster to the man underneath. Someone took a chance on me when they had every reason not to. Ivy's eyes filled with tears. I'm not going to stand here and say I'm perfect now. I'm not. I still have bad days. I still struggle with who I was. But I'm trying. Every day, I'm trying to be better. Kane raised his glass. So, here's to second chances. To found families. To the people who save us from ourselves. He smiled at Ivy. And to the woman who taught me that being alone isn't strength. It's just alone. Everyone drank. And then Tommy shouted, "Can we eat now? I'm starving." Laughter filled the penthouse. Later, after everyone had left, Kane and Ivy stood at their favorite spot. The window. The city. The world below. You know what I realized?
Kane said.
What? I spent 23 years building an empire up here. Above everyone. Alone. And I was looking in the wrong direction the whole time. What do you mean? Kane turned her to face him. The whole time I was building up, the life I wanted was down there. In Brooklyn. In small houses and loud dinners and messy, beautiful chaos. Ivy smiled. So what now?
Kane pulled out a small box.
Ivy's breath caught. Marry me, he said. Not because I deserve you, but because I love you. And I want to spend the rest of my life earning you. Ivy was crying now. That's the worst proposal I've ever heard. I know. I'm terrible at this. You really are. So, is that a no? It's a yes, you idiot. It's always been yes. Kane slipped the ring on her finger. They kissed as snow began to fall outside. And somewhere in the city below, a new story was beginning. Because that's the thing about second chances. They don't erase the past, but they give you the chance to write a different future. 5 years later, Dominic Kane walked into his daughter's bedroom. She was 3 years old, named after his father. Nicole. Daddy's story. Kane sat on her bed. Okay, what kind of story? A real one. Kane smiled. Okay. Once upon a time, there was a man who thought he was a monster. Was he scary? Very scary. To everyone but one person. Who? The woman who saw past the scary parts to the good parts underneath. Did she have superpowers? Kane thought about Ivy. Asleep in the next room. The woman who'd saved his life by simply being kind. Yes, he said. The greatest superpower of all. She could see the best in people, even when they couldn't see it themselves. What happened to the scary man? She married him, and they had a beautiful little girl who asks too many questions. Nicole giggled. That's me. That's you. Kane kissed her forehead, turned off the light. In the hallway, Ivy waited. Good story? The best story, Kane said. Because it's true. They walked to their bedroom. The one with photos of their wedding. Of Tessa's kids. Of the family they'd built. Kane paused at the window. His old spot. But now when he looked out at the city, he didn't see loneliness. He saw possibility. Thank you, he whispered. For what? For that Christmas Eve invitation. For seeing me. For saving my life. Ivy took his hand. You saved mine too, you know.
How?
You showed me that broken doesn't mean worthless. That past mistakes don't define us. That it's never too late to start over. They stood together, looking out at their city. I love you, Kane said. I love you too. Even though I was a terrible person, you were never terrible. You were just lost. And then you let someone find you. Kane pulled her close. Best decision I ever made. Outside, the city glittered with a million lights. A million stories. A million second chances. And in a penthouse 73 floors up, two people who'd been broken found their way to whole. Not perfect, but real. And that was enough. S.O. that's the story. The billionaire mafia boss who spent Christmas alone. Until one invitation changed everything. I told you it would break your heart before it healed it. But here's what I want you to remember. We're all a little bit like Kane. Hiding behind walls. Convinced we're too broken to be loved. Afraid to let people in. And we're all a little bit like Ivy. Damaged by our past. Scared to trust. But still brave enough to offer kindness to someone who needs it. The question is, what invitation are you waiting for? What wall are you ready to tear down? Who are you brave enough to see? Because second chances don't just happen. They're created. By people who refuse to give up on other people. By people who see the human underneath the armor. By people who understand that everyone deserves to be saved from their loneliness. Even the monsters. Especially the monsters. Final beat. If this story touched you, do me a favor. Think about someone in your life who's alone this season. Someone behind walls. Someone who's forgotten how to be human. And maybe, just maybe, invite them to dinner. You never know. You might just save their life. The way Ivy saved Kane's. The way someone might need to save yours. Merry Christmas. And remember, you're not alone anymore. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, leave a comment telling me where you're watching from. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, share it with them. Sometimes, the greatest gift we can give is simply seeing someone. Really seeing them. Happy holidays, everyone.